and welcome to Reliving My Youth. My name is Noel Fogelman. You can follow Reliving My Youth on Facebook by liking the page Reliving My Youth. You can follow me on X, formerly Twitter, at the first Noel19. If you like any of the episodes we've had in the past, over 300 of them, including this one coming up, please go to iTunes and rate and review the show. That would really help me out. If you don't have iTunes, not a problem. Show's on SoundCloud, Spotify, Podbean, Amazon Music, basically wherever you can find a podcast. This week, I have Lance Hoppen on from Orleans. Lance is the last original member of the band right now. In Orleans, soft rock / yacht rock band, had amazing hits back in the late 70s, including Still the One, Dance With Me, and Love Takes Time. We talk about Still the One's placement in pop culture. We also talk about the band's revolving door of members, what they did during the pandemic, their time during the 90s, which I really like some of their albums in the 90s, and what Lance is doing with the band these days. I really enjoyed my conversation with Lance, and I hope you do as well. So Lance, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Always love to talk about myself.
Yeah, of course, right? Your favorite topic, right? So, yeah. So I guess, we're a few years outside the pandemic now, but like, how did the pandemic affect the band, and are you guys kind of like finally recovered from it?
Yeah, so geez, okay. What a place to start. So in 2019, I was at my peak. We were doing a lot of Orleans shows. I do these corporate shows where I'm the band leader of this fantastic band, and we do multi-act shows, like 3, 6, 10 artists at a time. That was going on. I was subbing at Firefall. I was playing in Felix Cavalier's band. I was playing at church every Sunday. I mean, I was rocking. And then 2020 happened, and yeah, the last thing I got to do was one of those big 10-act shows, and a week later, everything came crashing down. And I figured, what, 3 months, a month, three, something, well, fine. And then it just like dawned on us all, oh
Yeah.
my God, this is going to be a while. So to adjust, um, we all had to learn more about home recording,
Right.
each of us, me included. And so we managed that time to use that time to produce 4 video productions for YouTube, each one getting increasingly more sophisticated as we went. And that was good learning process. And also I undertook to, I'm not social media savvy nor much of a fan, but what are we going to do? So I took it upon myself. I had all this scattered library of Orleans video performances, live stuff over the decades. And so I compiled it all, and then I started releasing, like putting things together that were of a kind, like an Opus 40 show of this year or that year or Japan or whatever. And then we started releasing these things every week to keep their audience engaged and offer free content and relive some of the glory days as we went. So it was really very cool. There's a lot of cool stuff up. The channel is Orleans Online on YouTube. And as we got to the turn of the year into 21, we started thinking, well, we've got 4 of these newish or remade or new song productions that might be the start of an album, a collection. So we said, well, we're coming up on 50 years too. Maybe this is the start of the 50th anniversary album, or swan song or whatever. But the next thought was, well, there's more of a deadline to do a Christmas album. Let's do that. Let's do that. So started thinking about that in January of 21. Started working on it. John was very distracted. John Hall was working on his own album. He was somewhere in the process of divorcing, and it was a several year process, and also falling in love and making a lot of things going on for him.
Right.
So I kind of took the helm along with my engineer, Mike Malfisi, our live engineer, who I've been working with since 1980, not consistently, but for 40 something years. So he and I co-produced. First of all, the band gathered a dozen different songs in various states of process. Some were, okay, that's a good thing from that source, as is, we'll just lift it. Like Fly Amaro, our guitar player of 20 years, he had a couple songs that were appropriate and done. There wasn't any need to work with them. He had one called Jinglin' in New England that we did the background vocals on. We beefed it up that way. John had a couple songs, one called Quiet Place, that was just this really simply barely very sparse production. And I had all these big production ideas for it. And we turned that into a big thing. I'm very proud of that. So anyway, and four things we started from scratch. So there were four things from scratch, four things that needed reworking, four things that were as is. And over the course of the first half of that year, we did it from remotely, right? So it was a very tedious process in that respect, back and forth, back and forth. And once we were getting done with that, we started actually to work live again around June, July 21, slowly and surely. And so that happened. And then so it took into 22, yeah, to kind of hit a stride again. But rather than have, for us, a year is like 36 shows, it's like, it's not like 150, 100, if we do 36, we're good, it's like,
Right.
that's enough. It's like, good. 50 would be pushing it, but it's not like we get offered 50 shows a year. But I think in 22, we only did maybe 24 shows. Still, as the industry came back and the band came back. And 23, kind of similarly, like, so a slow ramp up out of the COVID era, having released that Christmas album. And other things, worth mentioning as we go here are like the roster changes have been, fast and furious.
Right.
That's the whole topic of itself. But to answer your question, yeah, we spent the time productively while we were locked down, and then we slowly back up into whatever the world would have in terms of live shows. And so now, we're fully operational, but calendar's a little sparse.
Right. I mean, there's never a good time to have a pandemic. But
No,
but you imagine having it when Orleans was at its heights and then everything shut down where you couldn't remotely send files or work from home. I mean, at least now with the technology, you're able to put in an album or be relevant, still and get in touch with your fans. So at least in that regard, technology really helped during the pandemic.
absolutely, absolutely. And things, so it made us, as usual, crisis is opportunity. So everybody learned a lot in the process of how to do these things, and I've carried those skills forward as we go.
Right. And you mentioned, the roster changes, other than like Brady and like Tom, you still have the same, I mean, obviously John not being in the band anymore, but you still have, some of the core guys still from back, from like 80 pretty much. So
Well, less and less, and so
yeah,
a
a
quick
couple.
time, yeah, a quick timeline. John holds the record for leaving and coming back the most time.
Right.
His final departure, his fifth departure, was March of 22. So on this timeline, John had taken, well, so of course we lost Wells in 84,
Mm,
right? Early death. That was
right.
terrible. But he wasn't in the band at the time anyway. And neither was John. But that actually precipitated a memorial service, and John and Larry, after 7 years, reconnected and said, "Hey, this is good. So let's try it again." So then the three of us went to Nashville in '85, made a record for Tony Brown here. And then that would lasted a few years, and then John quit again because it wasn't having any fun. And then we got back in 1990 to do a double live album for Japan, as it turned out, double live. And then we kept going, um, and that ended in '97 when John quit again because he wasn't having any fun.
Right.
And so Larry and I were Larry and me, Larry, John, that core all along the way with different add-ons, 2 or 3 guys, all really great in their own right, and I'm grateful for each and every one of them. So then when we hit 2000, John says, "Hey, what about playing Opus 40? You want to try that?" So we did that, and it was such a great show in Woodstock in the fall. It was always on Labor Day weekend. Now we just said, "Oh, this is too good." So the three of us, endeavored to move forward, and that lasted until John wanted to run for Congress.
Right.
Right. So in '05, he said, I gotta do this. And so we got Fly Amaro back in the band, who had been briefly in the early '80s. And so Fly came in 2006-ish, and that band lasted. Oh, and along the way, we got Charlie Morgan on drums around 2000, and also my younger brother Lane, who had been in and out. He became permanent in 2000 forward. So that band lasted until Larry's death in 2012. And that's when, I mean, all hell broke loose, of course. And I thought we were, so John came back. I just wanted to finish the year.
Right.
It happened in July, and we had about 8 shows to do. And I just, I didn't want to just fade away, And a lot of people depended on it, like the band, for one thing, the players, the team, the promoters, the audience. I just didn't want to fold. I said, well, let's finish the year somehow. So guys came back. Bob Lineback helped, Charlie Shue, Fly, even guys outside the band like Joe Bashir from the Oyster Cult, and
Right.
Cafferty, and so we got some assistants to finish these shows. And come November of 2012, I said, well, 40 years, that's it. That must be it. And we ended it with a benefit show for Larry's kids.
Hmm.
And no sooner had done that than a guy called me up who I had met earlier that summer. We have one product with his label called Live Harvard Square 75. So that's all I knew. And so we met for the first time, and he said, if you ever. So he called me back like after in November, after around Thanksgiving, and he said, if you guys want to tour for next year, I can do that for you. So it was like, wow, what do you think, John? And so we said, well, let's try that. So 2013, you see this poster behind me, Sail Rock?
Yes.
Okay, so that was like, we were the house band, Christopher Cross, us,
Okay.
Robbie Dupree, Firefall, Gary Wright, player, so like John Ford Coley, and so we were the backup band for everybody.
Okay.
And that show put us back on the map, and we got through the year that way. And then it was like, wow, so 2014, 15, just kept going. And that lasted till 2018, when Charlie left the band and Brady came in on drums. And then since then, it's been pretty tumultuous because John ducked out in the summer of 2019. And then I got a guy named Chip Martin to come in. And he was doing great.
Yeah.
Friend of mine, great. And then John said, well, I'm ready to come back. And that was the spring of 20, but COVID hit.
Right.
Right. So there wasn't any gigs anyway.
Yeah.
But at least we did that recording stuff. Right. And then so that went through until we started working again, 21. And then there was a time when, I guess I'm losing the actual timeline here, but then there was a time when Fly had a health thing. So he had to go. He had to get off the road. So that's when we got Tom Lane. And that lasted from August till like the next spring. And then John had to go again. Like, and he had to leave. So then Fly had enough time to recover from his health thing. So he came back. So it went from Chip to John it went from John to Chip to Tom, like through all these changes. And then ultimately, so John left, and then like the next spring, we last February, we played a great show. The band was all together, and no sooner than we had done that than Fly said, I have a heart problem. I have to come off the road.
Oh, wow.
And so here's where it gets really interesting. You can stand the long story.
Right.
So I'm a week away from this the big show of the year, the one I talk about, 10 acts, right? Where
Okay.
I'm the band leader, and it's a multi-month process to do this thing and be prepared and make sure and always a Herculean effort. So I'm a 1 week away from that. And I'm finally woodshedding my own stuff, right? I'm trying to learn what I got to do because I farmed everything out to everybody. And Fly calls up and says, I gotta quit. And it's like, wow. Because, so I had to finish that project. And then 2 weeks later, we were going to do the Rock and Romance cruise.
Okay.
But I didn't have Fly. I was man down, right?
Yeah.
So Mike Severs, who I know from Felix's band for 20 years, great guitar player, was on that big show with me. And I said, can you sub for a while? And so in a 2 week time frame, Mike learned all this stuff and I trained him and we went we went to do the cruise. Well, 2 days before getting on the boat, I had to do the obligatory COVID test and my jaw hit the floor when the guy said, you're positive.
Uh,
And I was thinking, are you kidding me?
yeah.
Are you kidding me? I haven't been sick. The ramifications of me not being to get on the boat with only 48-hour window, right? It's
Right.
like the economics, the logistics, the politics, the whole thing was like just a mind-blowing wow. And so I told my manager, he says, well, all you can do is test again tomorrow. And I waited 24 hours. I went to the end of the day. I went to the place. I was blabbering to the technician. This has to be positive,
Yeah.
negative.
Negative.
Has to be. As if she had anything to do with it. And
Right.
lo and behold, it came back negative.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. But I traced it back to the big show, which was like 12 days earlier. That's where I picked it up and had the mildest of cases. Right.
Okay.
So that's crisis is averted. And then we go to get on the fly to Miami, get on the ship, and then Tom, who sings all the high stuff and sings Still the One, he tells me, "Oh, I think I picked up a sinus infection on the plane. I don't have much of a voice."
Oh, no.
So with Mike subbing and Tom and no Fly, what a nightmare! To act as if, right?
Yeah.
So we got through the cruise, and then we had another half a dozen shows to do, and it was a mix of quartet where there's no drums and quintet. We had never done a quartet, and I hadn't done that with Mike Severs. So it was constantly rehearse, do a show, rehearse, do a show, rehearse, do a show. And in the middle of that 6-show run, there was one that Mike couldn't do. So then we had to bring in another guy, Tom's friend Tony Hooper,
Okay.
who was the contender to be the long-term guy.
Hmm.
But in the middle of all that hecticness, I had to train him to do the one show and then go back to Mike and finish that. And so when we got to the end of that, April 15th at Daryl's house club in Pauling, man, was I glad that was over because that was just
Right.
super stressful. So from that point forward, you have me, Lane, Brady, Tom, who at that point now had, like a year and a half under his belt,
Right.
and his buddy of 20, 30 years playing this Tony Hooper. They had a great thing going on, and Tony grew into the part. But we didn't have a lot of gigs, so again, it was rehearse, do a gig, rehearse, do a gig. And then it took until September, I would say, when we had tested all the material, figured out what everybody could do, developed new things, new treatments, who sings what. All 5 guys sing lead at this point. It's great.
Right. That's good.
And so that band really gelled come fall. And I felt like having pushed the rock up the hill long and hard enough, it was finally starting to roll down the other hill. Right. And so just to finish the story, so that band is really, really good. Like this version, even though I'm the only original, that's how it has to be.
Right.
It carries on the legacy, the essence of Orleans, the song structures, the vocals, the guitar playing, everything, it's not as funky. It's more polished pop, but it's really strong. And it's in each of the versions, of which there have been a dozen plus over the years, each had its strengths and weaknesses at the time,
Right.
but they're all Orleans. And you have to look at it as like an evolution, uh, as opposed to, well, they only have one guy left. It's not that. It's a thread that runs throughout. And yeah, and I guess some critics would say, well, it's only, you know, it's not genuine anymore. Well, to me, it is the next extension of the logical extension of the 50 plus year history. And
Right.
that's how we are entering 2024.
Right. And I'm sure the fans enjoy the shows, right?
Fans love it. I mean,
And that's all that matters.
yeah. For one thing, I have very high standards, very high,
Right.
and if it's not good, I'm not doing it. So I've actually threatened to quit several times over quality control. Like this is not it
Right.
in recent years, but it never happened. But this one I feel this is the most consistently excellent version in my mind in a long, long time. Maybe since Larry.
Okay.
Maybe,
Wow.
you know, and it's different, but it's that strong, and it's that um, well oiled. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, and the shows have a start, a middle, and end. It makes sense. It goes through all kinds of.
Right.
Everybody gets their shot. Everybody has a spotlight, and then it's their turn to lay back. Everybody sings lead. Everybody sings. It's really, really good. So I can relax now going to shows knowing they're going to be
Yeah.
good.
Right.
So now I just need more shows.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm sure hopefully it'll fill up a little more as the year goes on. Now, how many of those shows do you just do like a night of Orleans, or is it more of like, triple bill, double bill now?
It's both. Sometimes it's an evening with where you have, like a 250 seat performing arts center or something. Might even have 45 minutes intermission, 45 minutes like that, or a little more intimate, that kind of setting. Sometimes it's three. We often work with Firefall and Pure
Okay.
Prairie League. Before that, it was with Poco. Of course, Rusty passed
Right.
in Poco. So multi-act bills like that, or solo, a mixture. And of course, on the cruise, you're one of
Yeah.
20. I mean,
Yeah. Right.
and I like it. I like it either way. I like 45-minute sets on a 3-act show. I like that. I
Yeah.
like 90-minute intimate settings where you can tell stories and everything in between.
Right. Was there ever a time that maybe you couldn't play one of your three big songs, or it just it didn't sound right with any of the singers?
No, there's never been a time of that. There's just been better and not as good.
Right.
See, when Larry passed, so then it was like, well, what do we do now?
Yeah.
Like, first of all, there were a lot of things we would never do again because they were very Larry centric.
Right.
But you have to do still the one. So
Yeah.
how do you do that? And it's the range of the song, the high vocal. Well, it turns out Fly could sing it,
Good.
but also turned out like it's this really strenuous thing. So then he would sing the verses, and we would get to the chorus, and then Lane would sing that incessant G sharp
Yeah.
over and over again, so Fly could take a break, and like that. And then when we get to the bridge where it's really high, and I have my falsetto, then I would sing the bridge,
Right.
and then we come back, and then it's like back to So we worked how to do these things that were good representations, and the audience could enjoy it. And then now Tom Lane, he sings Still the One great. And we do this similar thing where I sing the bridge. So these things have worked out. Love Takes Time was really hard to do. I had to learn. I don't have Larry's range, right? So I had to
Right.
learn how to be authentic, but adapt it to my abilities, and not his abilities. And it took a while for me to get that under my belt. But again, more than presentable, really good actually, and Dance with Me, not a problem
Right.
within my range, and so we have to do those. Dancing in the Moonlight is our other
Yeah.
adopted hit.
Right.
That has a whole story to itself, which you may or may not know, but we were attached to that song since before there even was Orleans and before there was a King Harvest to have a hit on it. So
Yeah.
we incorporate that. People like hits, even if they're covers,
Yeah.
And so that's the crux of, that's the super core of a show. And then you build around that depending on how much time you have, right up to a 90-minute show.
Right. And I'm assuming like the buck stops with you with all decisions on set lists and whatnot. And
It does now.
yeah.
It used to be a committee of two, me and John,
Okay.
and he and I think, and he'd admit it. We just don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, like
Yeah.
in terms of that stuff. And so, but it's like checks and balances, right? And that kind of friction makes for good creativity. But these days, yeah, now that there is only me, then
Right.
I am the king,
Yeah.
and the guys respect that. But I also am very inclusive. It's like you're there to do what you do because you do it really well. So go ahead and do it really well,
Yeah.
But I really want you to approach it this way,
Yeah.
I'm going to figure out the vocals and I'll assign them all because I know what everybody, So
Right.
I do all that. That's my job.
Yeah. Are there any Orleans songs that you just can't stand?
Can't stand. No, there's some recordings that don't hold up,
Okay.
and but a minority, a small
Right.
number. I think like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, we kind of missed the mark on that one or that album, even like missed the mark. But there's some stuff that's just timeless
Yeah.
and stuff, not just the obvious stuff, but some other things that are not well known that to me are like, yeah, that was really, really, really good.
Yeah.
Nothing I can't stand. And if I don't enjoy playing it, we don't
Don't play.
play it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, the one that I struggle with is Reach.
Sometimes I stop and wonder, why can't I let myself enjoy the space I'm in and all the wonderful places I've been? My eyes are on the future, and I can't think about the past. My aspirations always exceed my grasp. You got to reach a little bit higher when the light within becomes a fire. your soul. Oh, and you'll never grow old. Never, never, never grow old.
It's such a good song
Yeah, it is. I love it.
and a good vibe.
Yeah.
And in different versions, various versions of the band, it worked really, really well. But there came a time, like in recently, not now, but a version or two back, it's like, this just doesn't feel right. This isn't like, this is just laying there. And I don't get it, you know, how do we fix it? It's not happening. And it wasn't just me feeling that. I got some feedback to that effect too
Okay.
from trusted sources, like, this is not a lot of fun. And so I put it away. But then the guys really wanted to do it. I said, okay, well, if we're going to do it, let's do it good.
Yeah.
And so we've reworked that into the show because it is a powerful message and it's a fan favorite and it's a staple, you know, and I have to balance the classic catalog
Yeah.
along the evolved catalog.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's probably the closest thing I can answer to you.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know how much you ever talk about the albums in the 90s, which I absolutely love. I love Analog Man and I love Ride. Ride's probably one of my favorite songs.
Ride is
that song.
perhaps my favorite album.
Okay.
Like even maybe more than Waking and Dreaming. Like Ride has some great performances and great songs on it.
The freeways sparkle like a diamond chain, cross each other, then go their separate ways. I hear the rhythm of the open road telling me I've got somewhere to go. Off in the distance, a mountain range stays away from all those things that change. Turn the key and she comes alive. It's time to leave your memory behind. Ride till the lights of the city fade in the countryside. Since you told me your love has died, all I wanna do is ride, ride, ride. The city's sleeping in a fever haze. I keep driving to keep my dreams at bay. Dreams of tenderness, dreams of pain, dreams that you come back to me again. Tonight I'll trust this automobile, rolling wheels and molded steel won't lie. Slipstream scenery flying by helps me to forget that love was mine. Ride till the lights of the city fade in the countryside. Since you told me your love has died, all I wanna
Now, just like the landscape of the music industry, then like how well did that album do? Did it? I meant album sales or whatever, but just to connect with fans and stuff like that, because you wouldn't really think, no offense, of Orleans in the 90s.
No, so again, we reconvened. We had an offer. That's what reconvened us in 1990 to do a pair of shows that became a live
Right,
film for Japanese release. Okay, so that got us going. And then I had moved to Nashville in '89 because there was nothing going on.
right.
And I got a nice phone call, job offer down here. That changed my life entirely. That's a whole nother story. But that brought me here in '89, so I was busy. But when we had the offer for the October 1990, I made time for that. And then I went back to Nashville. And the guys played a few shows without me, probably count them on one hand in the early 90s. But we also, in 91, we went to Japan. We did a 5-city tour. I made that. And then come 94, we did another Japanese tour. And by that point, I was okay. I'm at, I'm committing full time again to Orleans. So I made all the highlights, right? Early 90s. It wasn't a lot. And from that, we got an offer to do an album, Analog Man.
Yep.
And so we worked on that for Japanese release in 94. And there's some good stuff on it. It's just a little, I think it's, when I go back to it, I go, oh yeah, it's better than I remember. It's like, so, but it's not my favorite, but it's got some
Right.
cool stuff on it. And it had the start of a few things that turned really good, like Heaven.
Yeah.
There was an earlier version that I'm not so fond of, but when we reworked it for Ride, it really came alive.
Yeah.
And so Analog Man was on Pony Canyon, Pioneer, something Japanese label, wasn't really released in the States.
Okay.
And then Ride, we got a deal with a label aptly named Dinosaur because they quickly went extinct. So we did the Ride album, and there was a single from it, and even a black and white low budget video for "I Am on Your Side," and it was starting to chart somewhere on the chart, and the label folded, which was not unusual for us. When we made One of a Kind in '82, that label folded right after we made it, so on and so forth. So Ride didn't have any traction either,
Yeah.
And that was what led John to leave the band again in '97 because it was just nothing happening, right? It's
Yeah.
like he didn't like pushing the rock up a hill any more than I do. But so those things sat there. And the next thing we did was a compilation of live stuff in 2002. And the next thing we did was the Dancing in the Moonlight CD in 2005, but due to lack of budget and whatever, we put it was half new and half 90s.
Yeah.
Stuff people hadn't heard.
Right.
Made up that compilation.
Yeah. How much of that stuff, like from Ride and like any of that stuff in the 90s, what's the reaction like that in shows if you do play that stuff?
We haven't worked it up in this band, and it's not easy.
Right.
Heaven always got a good reaction when we pulled that off. When we were with Chip Martin, that version of the band in 19, we did Ride itself.
Okay.
That hard charging song. I'm trying to think what else is on that album that we've done, but if we undertake them, they go over.
Yeah.
If they don't go over, they don't last.
Right.
But I'm trying to think, I'd have to see. There's so many songs, hundreds.
Yeah.
Where to place them, but those two stand out.
Right. And you can go back a few years prior to that, and the third album with Let There Be Music, and which featured Dance With Me, which is also featured on the second album. So yeah, so what made you guys release it again on the third album?
Dance want to be a partner, can't you see? The music is just starting, night is calling, and I am falling, dance with me. Fantasy could never be so killing, I feel free. I hope that you are willing, pick the beat up and kick your feet up, dance with me. Let it lift you off the ground, starry eyes, and love is all around us. I can take you where you want to go. Oh, dance with me. I want to be your partner, can't you see? The music is just starting, night is calling, and I am falling, dance with me. Let it lift you off the ground, starry eyes, and love is all around us. I can take you where you want to go. Oh, dance with me. I want to be your partner, can't you see? The music is just starting, night is calling, and I am falling, dance with me.
Well, we made our debut album, which was both the band in the Northeast and was upstate New York.
Yeah.
Breakout, but no hits. And then we made the second album we made this was for ABC, both of them. We self-produced. It has 9 cuts on it. Dance with Me was on it. Let There Be Music was on it in their most raw initial recordings. And ABC hated it, so they just dropped the band and they're like, "We're not releasing this."
Right.
So then we went back to New York City. We did our showcase thing again. We got picked up by Asylum. Chuck Plotkin, the head of A&R producer, who later went on to do, Bruce Springsteen and
Yeah.
right. So he heard what we could do. He heard those songs, and he got the re-recording rights for Let There Be Music and Dance With Me. So we could record them again. Had to buy those rights, and that was that album. The Let the Music was the first single, which was top 50 maybe. We'll crack the door open, and then Dance With Me was top 5, 6, whatever, wherever what chart you look at.
Yeah. Time Passes On. That wasn't a single, right?
No, another classic, and we do that.
Okay, I absolutely love that song. Yeah.
It's and it's so appropriate as part of the show,
Right.
because I do my rap about I'm the last guy standing, blah blah blah, 50 plus years, blah blah blah, and then we do Time Passes On. It's like, so it harkens back to the beginnings, right?
Right.
It's just really appropriate, and so yeah, that's a classic. That's a great one.
Time passes on like a river that must always run. Now you are gone, but I will have you till time is done. You can never take away the love you gave me yesterday, and I don't have to capture still, I'll sing that song to the emptiness I'll never feel. I don't need your photograph to see your face in front of me. We may never touch again, but you're hearing this melody. What once was will always be, and you've left your imprint on me. Sometimes I think it's the spark of conflict with which we affect most heavily. But I hope if you think of me, you'll remember only harmony. Time passes on, like a river that must always run. Now you are gone, but I will have you till time is done. You can never take away the love you gave me yesterday, and I don't have to capture you, 'cause you're here in my memory.
And with So the One, it's kind of obviously still in popular culture. I think Applebee's had a commercial a few years ago, if I remember, and like
Everybody.
King, right? It's just so you must love that when you get more money for you guys.
Yeah, it is among the most licensed songs
Yeah,
ever
right.
for commercials, movies, TV shows, things of that nature, from local banks to
Yeah,
national ad campaign. So we made that record in 70. It came out, it was a hit in 76. We did not see a royalty from Warner Brothers until 1996,
wow.
20 years, when simultaneously, and that's because you build up this, you spend, and we had a 400,000 plus something deficit
Yeah,
on the books. Plus, they like to hide money, right? So that's just how the game is played. But in 96, and you have to understand, this is a period of we're not doing so well. I was also that was my first year of recovery.
okay.
Right? So it was not and then suddenly, Still the One was used by both Toyota and Burger King simultaneously for national ad and TV campaigns. And suddenly, the cup overflowed. So we had paid off our debt according to them, and then we started getting paid, not only like quarterly or whatever, semi-annually, but as jingle singers
Okay.
because it was our own voice, our own version, not some sound-alike, right? So those checks were like every other day. You get $200 or $2,000, or And so while I'm in the throes of my infancy of recovery, I just go to the mailbox and there's money, and I was like, really like a blessing, super blessing. So it took until 96 for that to start happening, and that's been good. But somehow, even though streaming pays so badly,
Yeah.
the last 5 years or more, it just the sources, those royalty sources have just gotten bigger and bigger.
Right.
So they'll peak at some point, right? As our generation fades out, right? But I don't know if they peaked yet. But I could live on that alone. which is
Okay,
great.
great.
And it didn't, and it's so that's, I guess, if you wait long enough, you can win.
Right.
It took 20 years to start, and then it's been another almost 20 years of paying back. And now I just turned 70 like 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Happy birthday.
Yeah, right. So it's a milestone. I'm not freaked out. I'm also, like I said, I kind of peaked in 2019 energetically
Yeah.
with my playing here, there, and everywhere. I don't really, I don't really want to do that so much anymore. I don't want to retire. I just want to kick back a bit,
Yeah.
and I'm able, which is because I'm not
Great.
rich. I've never been rich or wealthy, but I'm okay, and that's not bad to be 70 and still have a career and still have a band name, a brand,
Right.
even if I'm the last one standing, that people like what they hear. They enjoy the
Yeah.
show. I mean, it just works, it's a win-win.
Yeah. And now it's the point where the fans dictate whether you guys continue. So it's
Yeah, the fans, the buyers, it's
yeah.
like, are they going to promote a show? They're the ones who take the, I guess the check.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, the risk reward, right?
Right.
So, it can't go on forever, but I think, I mean, if I can get another 3 years, another 5,
Mm.
wow, but so I'm thinking in those terms, another couple, 3 years, or maybe 5, but I don't really see it after that. And that's pretty amazing anyway. Like that, that Orleans can work 52 years in. That's pretty amazing.
Right. It's crazy. Yeah. It shows how loved the band is and how strong it's still going. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, and good to have a couple of three, some people really know the 2 hits, the third hit, Love Takes Time. They know
Yeah.
that.
Right.
So if you can do this on that, it ain't the Eagles, it ain't that.
Yeah. Exactly. Right.
But we have our place in the hierarchy, and I realize where that is.
Right. And then I guess now with the term yacht rock, it used to be easy listening or soft rock. All of a sudden, like about 10, 12 years ago, became yacht rock.
Yeah. So we kind of fall in that bag and kind of, not right down the center of it, but inclusive.
Yeah.
That's why they called this thing sail rock, because yacht rock was a branded thing,
Right.
trying to clone it, But
Yeah.
it's that 70s, pretty white, mainstream kind of,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
used to be soft rock,
Right.
or call it that,
Yeah, exactly. It's one of my favorite stations on satellite radio. It's definitely a go-to of mine. You guys always show up each day. So
I remember John used to tell a story about a friend of his who's gone up and said, "Hey, Dance with Me is number 2 on the easy listening chart. That means it's the second easiest song to listen to in all of America."
right. Yeah.
One way to think of it.
Yeah, true. Yeah, speaking of the radio, like, do you remember where you were the first time you heard one of your songs on the radio?
No, not specifically. No, not specifically. I mean, I might have heard a cut from the first album,
Right.
State New York somewhere, but no, it's not a thing that registers with me. Of course, those days are foggy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Or what about, like, recently hearing, like, I don't know, one of them, like, in a weird place, like Dance with Me or something like that. I'm sure, like,
I hear them, when you go to Home Depot or in a restaurant
yeah.
And yet, at the softest level, I just can pick it up. It's like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
almost subliminal.
Yeah, exactly. You don't go around saying that's my band, right? You just go buy your plywood and whatnot, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Where's the duct tape?
Yeah, exactly. But Lance, I really appreciate your time. Hopefully, if you had some more shows, you come my way because I'd love to see you guys perform. And best of luck.
Yeah, we're in Macon in February, and then we're going to do the rock and romance cruise again in March, and a couple of shows scattered throughout the year. So far, there'll be more, and we'll come to New York for sure. People can find us at orleansonline.net. We lost our .com. That's a whole nother crazy story.
Right.
orleansonline.net or the Orleans Online YouTube channel, or Orleans Music is where we are at Facebook. But thanks, Noel. It's good to. I was looking forward to this because it's reminiscing for me.